right, Mr. John Bartlett, Regional Director. Thank you for coming in to be willing to sit down and do this. Uh, Unique time inside the agency that you've worked for quite a while. I know that this isn't typical, us talking openly and publicly inside the Bureau of Prisons. We are now inside of the most transparent administration that has ever been seen in government. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And so, thank you for coming in. You and I get to talk a lot because from things are going on in the region, and we get to discuss going back and forth. And I've really appreciated getting to know you some. You have been now named as the regional director. You were in the acting role as we got here, and now you're there. Let's start out. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me how long you've been with the agency, kind of how you started, and what that come through has looked like.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. First of all, thank you for the invite. I'm honored to be here and to have a conversation with you. I'll start off. I was in the United States Marine Corps from 95 to 99. I got out. I spent 2 years with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Then I was hired on the Federal Bureau of Prisons in July of 2001. I've been with the agency over 24 years now.
Wow.
I started off as a correctional officer. I promoted when Forest City Medium came online. Came online in '04, but they had a need in '05 for like 20 GS8 officers. And that was back in when GS8, you had to put in for it. It wasn't an automatic GS8. So I put in for my 8, got a paid move to Forest City. I spent a little over 2 years there. Then I got promoted to GS9 lieutenant at FCC Lompoc, California. I was a GS9 lieutenant for about 18 months, and this was pre 9/11 lieutenant program at complexes and penitentiaries. Then I was in-house at GS11 lieutenant. From there, I lateraled to FCC Beaumont. When I took that lateral, basically people told me that it was a career killer, that I'd killed my career. But I didn't see it that way. I like challenging assignments. So I spent about 28 months as a GS11 lieutenant at FCC Beaumont. From there, I was promoted to captain at FCI Big Spring. I was in Big Spring, which is West Texas, about a little shy of 3 years. At that time, I was kind of selective of where I wanted to be a 13 captain. I'm from South Texas, so I wanted to stay in the South Central region. I was fortunate enough to put in for the complex captain at FCC Bartlett. I was honored to get that job. I was there about 24 months. Then I promoted out as the chief officer of emergency preparedness here in D.C. From there, I went to be the associate warden at SCI Mariana. At that time, it was in the rebuilding process. So we got to reactivate that institution after the rebuild. From there, I went to FCC Beaumont, back to FCC Beaumont, meet him as the warden. Then from there, I was fortunate enough that I could stay there, and I was honored to get the job as a complex warden at FCC Beaumont. Throughout my career, I have spent 11 years as an operator for the Special Operations Response Team, which is SORT. I was on 4. I had the privilege of being on 4 teams and the leader of 2 teams, which was FCC Lompoc and FCC Beaumont.
So that's quite a resume. And how many times have you moved?
10.
10.
Yep.
That's a lot.
And then, of course, I got the job as the senior deputy regional director. And then, it's an honor and a privilege to become the regional director for the Southeast region.
Well, I tell you, I still am blown away at how many moves that many of you have had to do over your career within the agency. That's tough. It's tough. So, you've heard us talk, and you've seen some of the changes with regards to leadership. One of the things that I've heard as I've gotten out to, I don't even know how many institutions now, and spoke to, I've got to be somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 staff members, from open recalls and things like that, many one-on-ones. And a lot of times we hear the good old boy network. right? We hear that a whole lot inside of this agency. And I think the agency is starting to feel that we're looking at warden selections differently. We're going to be looking at AW selections differently. We're going to be looking at captain selections differently. Tell me, when you look at some of these ways that we can do leadership, what are your thoughts as we work to try to get the right leaders in the right seats?
Well, for me, it's all about leadership. Leadership comes from you have to be out there, and that's one thing I see with you and the director. Y'all are out there. One of the biggest things that I can tell, wardens, AWs, captains, lieutenants. It doesn't matter what your leadership position is, and I'm not going to say manager because I believe we're all in a leadership position. You have to be out. You have to know what's going on in your facility. You have to know what's going on with your staff. Yeah, and you have to know what's going on with your inmate population. Like I tell people, you either come in early, sign paperwork, you stay late to sign paperwork, but you have to be out and about. You have to have your thumb on everything that's going on. Because if you don't, then you're going to be in for a bad day when something does happen.
Mm. And as I've went around, you and I've now got to go to some institutions together in your region, and man, I tell you, some phenomenal staff out there. We've got some places that have just tremendous leadership. You can tell just as you're around them, as you're interacting with them, and we've got some that aren't. We've got some that have used whatever that is, whether they moved a lot and they were just the next person up, or they knew somebody in leadership well and they moved them up and carried them around. And give me some examples. You don't have to talk about people, but where you have seen, as you've come through, the impact of good leadership and maybe the impact of poor leadership.
Well, but I can speak from personal experience. Good leadership is about bringing people up. It's about teaching them. It's about educating them, and it's about training them. It's about being a mentor. And coming up, I've had some great mentors coming up, where they opened my eyes and changed my how I view things, so to say. Listen, I'm a correctional services guy, but one of the things coming up that I've learned early on is programming works. If you give inmates an opportunity and you give them an expectation and you're actively engaged, it's going to work. It doesn't matter what custody level you're at, it's going to work. And on the flip side of that, I see, I've worked for some poor leaders. And it's just the fact is some people are insecure. They have an ego. And I'll be first to tell you, I'm sitting in this chair right now, not because of anything I've done, because the good staff that I've had, that's worked with me. And I won't say for me because I believe everybody works with me. And I'm not scared to say that I don't know everything. I have a great office right now that whatever I need, they're going to get it to me. But sometimes we see poor leadership is that through experience, sometimes people don't have the experience that you have. And instead of asking questions to get to know why you're doing something that might be a little bit different from the norm, they want to be quick to judge you and be quick to throw you out there and be like, "Oh no, this ain't how it's supposed to be done. What are you doing?" So I think sometimes poor leadership is insecurity. People have an ego and they don't want to listen. And at the end of the day, to me, those are the people that are going to fail.
Hmm. Yeah, great point. You and I had a chance to be at one of the prisons, and we've put a lot more focus on rampant lockdowns, right? That we've got some places that lock down too much. They just do. We've got places that haven't had visitation the way that they should, and and it's shown. We know we've got staffing problems and many different challenges, but we see some prisons operating just fine with those things, and we have some that are staying locked down and some challenging things, and I know we've been working together on that. But I'll tell you something that really struck me is, when we were doing one of the recalls with the inmates population at one of the prisons, and there were shot callers in there. There were some people in there, and they were, this was at the highest level we've got. These are people that can be very dangerous, groups that can be really difficult to manage. And as one was expressing their frustration, I heard him say, he looked over and he goes, "We need this guy back." And he pointed to you. And And you could tell, I mean, this is a high time individual, we were talking through security issues. Why do you think, or what have you done to gain that type of respect? Because I could feel it. I could feel it in that room, the respect that those inmates had for you. It wasn't one of those they saw you as weak or anything like that. They knew, but they had respect. Help me understand the leadership that ended up garnering that type of respect.
Well, during that recall, I could probably tell you I knew 3/4 of those inmates in that room that were so-called shot callers for the different groups. Coming up in this agency, one of the biggest things that I learned early on was you treat everybody with dignity and respect, whether it's your staff or the inmate population. And at the same time, I've also learned that you have to give people an expectation. Doesn't matter whether they're staff or inmates. You give them that expectation, you tell them what's expected to them as men and women, and you hold them to that expectation. Earlier on, I saw, I'll give you examples when I was at FCC Pollock as a captain, trying to not lock down as much. So how do we accomplish that? Even though, there are stabbings going on, there's staff assaults, how do you get staff to buy into that? Well, it goes back to, you go back and you talk to your staff. Hey, what ideas do you have? What can we do differently? And then you take those ideas and you talk to the inmate population as well. Hey, look, y'all are complaining about lockdowns, but this is the direction we need to go. And, learning that early on, and it goes back to being out and about and talking to people. So, at these at these penitentiaries, especially, it's a volatile situation. Like I tell people, are lockdowns necessary? Sometimes they are. Sometimes, do we lock down too much? Sometimes we do. It's about changing the mindset of how staff and inmates think, right? So one of the biggest things I saw, um, in Beaumont was talking to the inmate population. Oh, we're locking down for any little thing. We get into a little fist fight, we're locking down. I said, all right, let me look at that. Looked at it. Okay. All right. Listen, this is what we're going to do. And sometimes you have to think outside the box when you do certain things. One of my biggest problems was, you look at USP Beaumont, we had a shank problem, we had a knife problem. So how do you fix it? Right. So I gave the inmates an expectation. Not only that, when I was the warden at the medium, you look at, okay, what problem do I have at this medium? At that time, I had cell phones. So, we don't live where we think we're going to lock an inmate up and ship them, right? So to get caught with a cell phone, what are we going to do? We're not going to put him in SHU because then all we're going to do is overcrowd SHU. Okay. So I had great SIS staff in Beaumont. So they came up, hey boss, we got this enhanced security monitoring plan we want to try. Okay. What is it? Basically, it's a plan that puts the inmate on notice. Hey, you've got caught with a cell phone. We're going to come your commissary for 6 months, taking your visits for 6 months. And not only that, we're going to do some more cell searches on you, but we're going to leave you in GP. And the inmate signs the copy. Now, after 18 months, the inmate programs, he'll come off that plan. Wow. But it's some of those things that sometimes you have to think outside of the box in order to make things work. One of the biggest things, and it works, right? So, for me, it's one of those things at these higher levels, you have to talk to these inmates. When I was an inmate, when I was the warden of Beaumont, and listen.
There's only one of us here that's been an inmate, okay? That's not you.
So when I was the warden at USP Beaumont, the inmates would always joke around with me. I used to walk around the rec yards. I used to walk in the units by myself. Inmates would say, oh, you're not scared that we're going to do something to you? I laughed at them. I said, well, why would you do something to me? I said, what have I done to you? And they would just laugh, right? So it goes back to how you treat people, right? It doesn't matter who they are or what they are. They're still people, and it's how you treat them at the end of the day. And that's one of the things that I live by is we're not here to judge people. They've already been judged. Our job is to make sure they follow the rules and regulations. That way everybody goes home safe, staff and inmates.
I'm sitting here as I'm listening to, you listen to your team came up with an idea and it improved the prison,
Oh, absolutely.
tremendously, right? Some of the best ideas, this is why I get out in the field so much. Some of the best ideas are on the front lines. It's not, sitting here at central office. I say, the friends that I've got that work in this agency, when I got this job, many calls came to me, and the biggest advice was, please do not listen to people in central office. Get out of that place and get down into the field. And man, they were right. I mean, been able to learn so much being out on the front line. But I sit there and I think about communication, something that's lacking a lot inside of the agency. And I think about sharing of the best ideas, right? Just now, I mean, there's going to be people listening to this podcast that have heard just that idea you're talking about. Um, any advice that you'd have for some of those wardens out there, or some of these AWs or captains that are going to be listening to this, somebody that's been doing this a long time, you've got a lot of experience, I'm sure you've done plenty of things wrong, and you've done some of the things right, and you're going, okay, hey, I found some successes. What advice would you have for them?
We all make mistakes. Don't be afraid of failure. But at the end of the day, you have to own it. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you have to own what you do. Don't make mistakes for it, but own it, learn from it. And one of the biggest things, advice I can give wardens, AWs, listen to your people. Like I've heard you say that some of the best ideas come from our staff, and they really do. And sometimes we have to put that ego aside, and we have to listen to our people. We have to listen to the people that are on the front lines, that are on the ground, that are actually doing the job day to day. Okay, what do you need? How can I help you? Because like I always tell people, because my biggest thing is when I make rounds, I talk to people, wardens, line staff, I always ask them, what do you need from me? How can I help you? Because one of the biggest things I leave them with is this: if you need something and I don't give it to you, shame on me. But if you need something, I give it to you, and you still don't do what you need to do or do your job, then shame on you. It's just about taking the excuses away.
Yeah, I call it the make it my fault list. I tell people, you tell me what you need. Any excuse that you'll have, you tell me what you need, and I'm gonna do what I can to make that better. Because then later on, it's gonna be, I need it to be your fault instead of mine whenever we're holding you accountable. And so I really like that. Um, as we've navigating some of the challenges, I mean, Director Marshall and I inherited a very difficult situation here, right? You've inherited a difficult situation. You regional directors have to go through a lot, and we've got many wardens out there that are being put in spots, and they're inheriting very difficult situations. As we go about, these roles, where do we find that hope and desire for? Why are you so motivated to do your job and to step into such a big role with so much responsibility and so many headaches, so many challenges that you get to read and listen about and hear from every day? Where do you find your motivation from?
It's about making the difference. We're all in this together. So my view is this: what can I do to make that difference? How can I help the staff out there to get the job done? Because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the staff that are out there at these facilities doing their job day in and day out. And, we do, money's an issue. Staffing's an issue. But I would tell you this, from what I've seen, some of the staff out there that are doing what they have, they're doing a phenomenal job. And like I tell people, attitude is everything, and attitude is contagious. If you have a bad attitude, how do you think the people around you are going to feel? If you have a good attitude, you're motivated, how do you think your staff are going to feel? So I always take that into account, and that's what keeps me going, is trying to help the staff and see where we can make that difference in getting the job done and turning things around and righting that ship.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's been a pleasure working with you already to the extent that we have. We've had to navigate some challenging things. We're still working on some very challenging things, but I really appreciate your approach to leadership. I appreciate your approach to the population, and I appreciate your care for the people that work with you. And I'll tell you, I'm really excited about the things that we're talking about, the things that we're looking at doing, because it's going to take key leaders. We're going to have to identify. We don't have much of a bench. We're going to have to find those leaders on the front lines. Those leaders coming into this agency just in the last few years, being able to raise them up and put them into good, solid positions, and get the right leaders in the right seats. And when we have the bad ones, we got to make those decisions to not allow them to continue to have the impact and the influence. And so I just thank you for your commitment to this agency, the years that you put in, the moves, all the things that I know that have not come without cost to you. And I appreciate it. I'm just looking forward to you working with us and Director Marshall and us trying to make this a better place, making the difference that we can while we have.
Absolutely, sir. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite, boss. And like I said, phone's always open. Doors always open. Whatever y'all need from me, whatever you need from the Southeast region, we're all in.
I appreciate that. All right. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely.